What's the most dangerous city you've traveled to? Right now St. Louis, Missouri is ranked at 7 for murders per capita in the world linked to data. I go there quite often to visit my relatives. We pick random neighborhoods with a decent hotel and nice restaurants to stay in. Museums are awesome as is their zoo. There are a lot of great neighborhoods with music, performing arts, art displays, food and more to explore. Always had a great time, and love that city more each time we visit. You mean, what city did I travel to that I perceived as dangerous based on salacious news stories and ambiguous statistics? That I arrived at already irrationally fearful, not understanding that the dangers largely fell upon the marginalized residents of the city and not on travelers like me? Where I quickly hurried through an impoverished area, finding reinforcement for all my fears and biases, and failing to note the good people and vibrant culture all around me. Good try, but I'll sit this one out. PT Moore's viewer like PNG. When security transport didn't show up at the airport, which also happened in Caracas, sigh. Actual scariest was driving through a sudden mob that formed at a market while on the highway to 11 Mile from Lai. A ton of people stirred up by something in the market. Most of them carry a machete and aren't slow to use them, even the ladies whose machetes are smaller to fit in their bags. I live in SoCal, but, really downtown Los Angeles. My husband and I were going to an event at LA Live. Traffic was a mess as usual. Got off the freeway to try side streets, worst decision of our lives. The streets are just filled with homeless. It was at night, and, I'm sorry to say, Los Angeles is zombie land. It breaks my heart. One of the richest state in the world, and, it's a disaster. I was offered $250,000 expenses to take a film crew to Baghdad in 2005 for a military contractor. They were even going to arm me and the crew and give us basic weapons training. But, according to them, I was going to be perfectly safe. I was going to take the assignment until I came home and excitedly told my wife over dinner. She looked at me, gestured at our 3 kids, and that was that. It's weird. I have been to a lot of the US cities listed in some international places and all of them felt safe enough to me. I guess on sketch factor, probably be select parts of Atlanta at night. Being a young white kid in a caddy, was a bit on the I really shouldn't be here scale. I just tend to believe cherry's good everywhere though and not let reputations ruin that. Guayaquil, Ecuador. Upon our arrival, I learned a lot about scoping drugging people with scopolamine, turning them into obedient zombies, daylight express kidnappings, and to never go anywhere alone regardless of the time of day or area you're in. 255 naval personnel in town for a port visit, but not actually sure if they're brave enough to leave the ship. Guatemala City in the early 2000s. My uncle hung his arm out of the window at a stoplight, 3 kids ran up and snatched his watch. Our bus driver at one point got cut off and pulled out a gun. Shit was wild. Prostitution everywhere too. Every street corner. Guards in the mall casually walking around with AK-47s. Mosul because of unexploded munitions. I found Baghdad very safe except that one cab driver. Cape Town, Johannesburg, Rio and Istanbul were not safe. Istanbul was standing next to a woman who was purse snatched. Police station, perp line up, explosion at our hotel, riot at Taksim Square outside our hotel. It's been a long time, early 90s, but I'd visited a friend who went to college in Youngstown, Ohio and witnessed 2 guys fighting outside of a bar when one pulled out a gun and murdered the other guy in front of a crowd of people. I've never run so fast in my life to get back to my buddy's dorm room, Milwaukee. Why? But I didn't realize at the time. It definitely felt safer than some areas of New York and New Jersey. It apparently is a high crime rate comparable to Detroit though, like almost every city in the Great Lakes region, and the data doesn't lie. I must have stayed out of the bad parts. I grew up outside St. Louis suburbs and never felt in danger when I went to the city. That being said, there was a time I took a wrong turn and a cop was blocking the entryway. He stopped me and said, "You're going the wrong way." I ignored my GPS and found another route to my destination: Lowell, Oakland, Baltimore, East St. Louis, and Tijuana. Not sure which is the most dangerous. I go to the Inner Harbor in Baltimore every year for work and I love it. A beautiful area with a lot to do, and I'm a fool for crab cakes. But I do know most of Baltimore isn't like that. I've seen The Wire. I used to go to Acapulco for vacation a lot back circa 2005 when I lived in Mexico City and it was nothing wild. I went back again in 2016 and fuck that. Gunshots ringing through the air every 10 minutes while you're trying to have a drink at the hotel pool is sketch. Not a city, but when I discovered that the Israeli tour guide who had taken us off-roading in the desert one was a settler and who had taken us into the West Bank, I definitely had a few thoughts about whether I even wanted to survive if the Jeep flipped on one of those hills. My first thought is Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. But if you believe the stats, Detroit is far, far more dangerous. I travel a lot for work. It's almost hilarious how many travel alerts I get when I go to the US compared to any other country. I used to live in El Paso, Texas, and terrifyingly I had to go across the border into Juarez on occasion to collect documents and recover impounded rental cars. That was actually dangerous and not just theoretically dangerous. Amsterdam. Murder rate there is fairly low, but over a 3-day weekend I was mugged once and the next day a guy attempted to mug me, but I yelled back off and he ran. I know 2 other people who've been mugged there. Baltimore, which is 17th highest murder rate in the world right now. But I guess I wasn't hanging out around all the murderers and murder spots, so it was pretty chill. Same with Detroit at 23 and Philadelphia at 46. Statistically probably not the most dangerous, but during the 4th of July I was walking down a road in Brockton, Massachusetts and bullets were dead-ass smacking the concrete and spewing sparks right in front of me. Shit was wild. According to my conservative uncles, Seattle. Apparently it's a crime-ridden hellhole and it's a miracle I made it out alive. In the real world, my best friend's family took me to Mexico City for a week one summer. Probably South Africa in general, also went to a slum in Nairobi. To be fair, I have no idea how dangerous the slum was, but I did not want to be there and I don't think they were interested in me being there either. San Pedro Sula, Honduras. It appears to have got better in recent years. But at the time about a decade ago it was terrifying. Only place I've been where I've heard multiple sets of gunshots during the night. I have ventured out with camera gear in Johannesburg, SA. Also I have been to Tigres, Honduras, and San Pedro Sula, Honduras, both with camera equipment. Still felt less safe in the US. Tigres is Tegucigalpa, 1995. No phones. 19 suburban kid. Never experienced the Philly hood. Drove to Philly Civic Arena and went through spray-painted sections of town as tall as the arm could reach, blocks and blocks. Young and dumb. Brussels circa 1987. Europe had a lot of violent protests occurring. I was in the airport waiting to board and there were a half-dozen soldiers with Uzis looking at all of us. Most scared I've been traveling. I used to live in a very bad District 8. Budapest. Gunshots every single night. Some guy was killed right outside the entrance of the building I lived in. This was in 2004, don't know if it's better now. Let's see, in the past 12 months I've been to a few according to 2022 World Rankings. New Orleans, Louisiana 8. Baltimore, MD 17. Memphis, Tennessee 25. Cleveland, Ohio 27. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 46. I've traveled to many dangerous cities, not Rio or Johannesburg but several in Mexico and America and many in the US. But now I live in Portland and those cities don't seem so bad anymore. I go to Little Rock, Arkansas, and Memphis, Tennessee pretty frequently. I walked from the hotel to Elmwood Cemetery in Memphis and realized halfway that I probably shouldn't have done it. I lived through the DC sniper in the neighborhood just a couple minutes from several of the shootings. I would scurry out to my car and drive 45 minutes away to get gas or go to the store. Mogadishu and Port-au-Prince. I see lots of names passing that are kindergartens compared those two. These places your head gets literally chopped off, increasingly if you're a Westerner. Rio de Janeiro. The murder rate is completely unfathomable, and the police in the city kill more people per year than the American police do for their whole country in a year. Probably Bogota, Colombia in 1973-74 for 8 months during Pablo Escobar days. ESP one day unknowingly visiting his zoo out in the country, the one with the now problem hippos. Vallejo. Gunfight the day I got there a few hundred yards from my Airbnb. Might not be the most dangerous I've been in, but certainly the closest to real danger I've been. Los Angeles. Used to have to drive though to visit family. Was almost carjacked on multiple occasions and had cars cut you off and people run out and surround your vehicle. Spent a week in Port Moresby and that definitely tops my list. Only place I've been where I had armed security with me, and where I didn't feel safe walking around at all. Drove to Jordan from Missouri via the land route, which means traversing the West Bank. Honesty, I didn't find it that dangerous, but I wouldn't have done it this year. I live an hour from Tijuana and it's currently rated 5th in the world for most murders. I've also been to St. Louis and it felt a lot more dangerous there. Only American city I was ever worried about my safety was Memphis. This is from a guy from Miami and has lived in Atlanta, Houston and close to Oakland. Buenos Aires made me uncomfortable sometimes, Paris too. Some parts of Budapest were sketchy but not too bad. I think I've been lucky for the most part. Quito, Ecuador. While I was there, a presidential candidate was assassinated. Obregón, Sonora, Mexico, was one of my favorite places I visited, but has been in the top 5 dangerous cities in the world in the last few years. Johannesburg, SA. Pre-arranged company taxi from the airport to the hotel. Didn't leave my room until private transport arrived and called me. My husband and I used the subway and public bus system to get around Rio de Janeiro. Some of our Brazilian friends thought we were crazy. Sheboygan, Wisconsin. The Week Polish Fest was cancelled. Almost saw an uprising when the crowd found the Kenosha Kickers were cancelled. Accidentally ended up in Overtown in Miami at 2 a.m. Told my wife not to stop the car regardless of if the light was red or not. I go to St. Louis a couple of times a year. I recently saw that it was voted the most dangerous, flush face, skull, city in the United States. Apparently Detroit. Though we never went to the bad parts. I think. Beautiful city, beautiful river, beautiful Belle Island. I'm from Colombia but for me it was Memphis, Tennessee. Plot twist. ABQ or Richmond, VA probably. Was there when the cops were going crazy and the protests were in full swing after George Floyd. Cape Town, South Africa. Chased by some muggers from the restaurant after dinner back to our hotel in daylight. Scary place. Not sure about dangerous but Manaus, Brazil was not somewhere I would have left the hotel at night or by myself in the day.